What's up? It's me, Don Tolliver. If I could describe the Bose Ultra Open earbuds, I think I would describe it as very seamless. It can definitely be something that you can style. It's like earring candy. Check out Bose.com for more.
Craven the hunter, who uses all the methods of the animals.
This Thursday.
Once you're on his list, there's only one way off.
Are you like your father?
He puts evil into the world. I get rid of people like him.
Who's next?
Witness the making of a new Marvel villain.
You think you're some kind of honor. You're a criminal, just like our father.
Aaron Taylor Johnson is Craven the Hunter. Rated R. Under 17 on admitted without parent. In theaters Thursday.
Hey there, Duke fans. DBR Bites, episode number 72. Promise not to take up too much of your time today. We are going to preview the start of the ACC season. First ACC game for Duke. We go on the road against a team that is widely perceived as one of the better teams in the conference, headed to Louisville to play the Cardinals. I'm Jason Evans. I'm here with my buddy Donald Wine. In the interest of transparency and fairness, we're recording this only moments after we got done talking about Duke's win over Auburn, even though it's probably, a good 18, 24 hours after you listen to that episode that you're listening to this one. If something huge has happened in the past day, don't blame us for not referencing it. We are here, though, to talk about Auburn and Duke this weekend. Sorry, I said Auburn and Duke. I meant Louisville and Duke.
We beat
I still
Auburn.
got the Auburn game on my mind, Donald.
Out of my face.
Yeah. I still got that game in my head.
We might have to beat them twice, but we don't have to worry about that until March. So let's focus on Louisville.
There you go. We're here to talk about a Louisville and Duke this weekend in Louisville, in Kentucky. Donald, I'll let you get us started. What kind of a team has Louisville been so far this year?
Well, much better than last year, but that bar is very, very low compared to last year and the year before that. But as we've talked about on the show before, brand new team from last year, brand new coach, brand new coaching staff. Louisville's tried to want to insert themselves back into the conversation for best team in the ACC, a thing that they have held, for quite a while, right? They've been one of those teams other than the last few years. They've been a program that has consistently tried to be one of the best teams in the ACC since they joined. Right now, they're 5-3. We'll get to the record right now. They have wins against Morehead State by 48, Bellarmine by 32, and Winthrop by 15. They then go to the Battle of Atlantis. They had a loss to Tennessee by 22. But then they go to the Battle for Atlantis down in the Bahamas. And it was a great chance to test themselves against some really good teams. And I thought they did very well and even played well in the final. They beat Indiana by 18. They then beat West Virginia by 9 in overtime. But then in the final, a very tough game against Oklahoma, that battle back and forth, they eventually lose by 5. One of the games that we circled was Louisville taking on Ole Miss in the ACC SEC Challenge. If you listened to the last episode, you know how that went badly. Ole Miss by 23 in that game. So, riding a 2-game losing streak for Louisville. But again, at home is a place in the Yum Center. It's a place where when that place is full and it's in full voice, it is a difficult place for Duke to play. We have lost there before. We've been upset there before. And they're going to be ready. This is one of the highlights of their season is this opening game, and they've had that game circled for quite a while since the schedule was released. So this is a game that Duke needs to enter with the same mentality that they did when we went to Tucson, right? It's going to be a similar type of atmosphere. The fans are going to be on top of you, despite the fact that it's a very big arena. But at the same time, Duke needs to come with the poise. They need to come with the intensity. They need to come with the execution. That's going to be what helps get out of here with the first road victory in the ACC.
Yeah, and by the way, before I get to the advanced metrics on Louisville, I do want to praise them. You talked about that schedule, but I just want to put a finer point on it, which is that they've played 8 games, and 5 of them have been against really good tournament quality teams. There's, Tennessee, Indiana, West Virginia, Oklahoma, Mississippi. That's a very, very tough schedule, and they are to be commended, the Louisville Cardinals, for playing that tough a schedule to start the year. That said, they're only 5-3 on the season. They've lost 3 of those games. And, this is a team that I would say currently there are 4 teams in the ACC that are in pretty good shape nationally. 4 teams that you go, it looks like that's probably an NCAA tournament team. Louisville is sort of at the head of the next group, the head of the group of the ACC teams that look like they'll be, battling around the bubble if they don't, play, a lot better. But at the moment, would be actually probably on the outside the bubble looking in, along with like Florida State, NC State, SMU, maybe a Wake or a Stanford. Louisville is currently number 53 at Ken Palm. They're better on defense than they are on offense. So let me start on their defense. And the thing that Louisville does best is they force turnovers. This team is the 9th best team in all of college basketball at getting turnovers. They force the opposition into a turnover on almost 25% of their possessions. 1/4 of the time you bring the ball up court, Louisville gets a turnover on you. That's a big, big number. They also do a very nice job of defending the 3-point line. They only allow their opponents to hit 33.9% from 3. That's not like a super low number, but it's pretty good. The national average is a little more than 36%. So they're going to force you to grind it out, play at a slow pace on defense. And, it's hard to score a lot of points on Louisville. It just is. On offense, man, this team loves to shoot 3-pointers. This Louisville club.
Yeah.
Get the number, Donald. 51.5% of their shots, more than 50% of their shots come from the 3-point line, is the 13th highest 3-point field goal rate of anyone in the country. But you know what else about them? They don't hit them.
Clang, clang, clang. Hopefully we're not knock on wood here. Knocking on my wooden head here. Because we've seen teams play Duke and we're like, oh, they're terrible from 3, and then they start by hitting like 6 of 8. No Isaiah Evans on this team, please. Louisville, leave that at home. Exactly.
So, like I said, more than half their shots come from 3-point range. They only hit 27% of them. Now they make up for that a little bit by being a very good 2-point field goal shooting team. Like when they take 2s, they hit better than 60% of them, which is a really good number. And they're also a good offensive rebounding team. They grab almost 37% of their missed shots, which is a pretty big number. 27th best in all of college basketball. And I think part of that is when you fire up a lot of 3-pointers, you're going to get some longer rebounds or some, slightly screwy rebounds. But Duke needs to focus on not letting Louisville, a team that loves to shoot 3-pointers, have a good day from 3-point range. The other thing I should mention about Louisville is they are super old. I mean, like the 6 guys who play the most for this team are all seniors. And I think 2 or 3 of them are 5th-year seniors. Actually, one guy, Noah Waterman, who's like their starting big man, he's in his 6th year of college hoops. Noah Waterman entered college with Cassius Stanley and Vernon Carey. If Duke had played, I'm trying to remember. I want to say he was at Winthrop, maybe. I forget where he was. If Duke had played Noah Waterman his freshman year, he would have had a chance to play against Justin Robinson. Dude's been around college basketball for a long time. And as I'm noted, Noah Waterman is now their starting big man because just in the last week, they lost Cassine Pryor, who had been there. He had I think he tore an ACL or an Achilles. I forget which one it was, but bad leg injury. And Cassine Pryor is out for the year. It's a really tough break for them. He's a 6'10 senior, and he had been easily their best inside player, and they are really going to struggle. They only, Louisville club's only really going 7 deep at this point. They were going 8 deep. They're really only going 7 deep now because they lost Cassine Pryor. And I think they're going to struggle with Duke's size and with Duke's ability to take the ball to the inside because they don't. Cassine Pryor was the guy who was protecting the rim for them, who was getting rebounds for them and scoring a little bit. They've got no one who can do that now in nearly the same way they used to. I want to highlight a couple players for them. Their leading scorer is guard Chucky Hepburn, who was at Wisconsin last year. I think we've mentioned this before, but just so people are aware of it, every single player on the Louisville roster is a transfer. The entire team left in the offseason when Pat Kelsey arrived, and he brought in a whole new team. Nothing but new players. and among them is Chucky Hepburn, who's averaging more than 15 points per game. Pretty good player for Wisconsin last year. And in his career, he's struggled, a little bit at 3-point shooting. He's only hitting 34%, but on Louisville, that's actually a pretty good number. because they're so bad usually. And then the other guy I wanted to mention is someone that Duke fans should remember. Terrence Edwards Jr. was at James Madison last year. He was James Madison's best player. He was like, I'm pretty sure he was player of the year in the Colonial. Ooh, what conference is James? I forget what conference they're in, but whatever conference it is that they're in, he was the player of the year in that conference because he was so good for that dominant James Madison. That was a really good
Sun Belt. They're in the Sun Belt.
Sun Belt. Sorry, they've moved around. I think. In any
Yes,
event,
they have.
Yeah. I thought that Terrence Edwards would come in and be a more of an impact player than he has been for Louisville. He's averaging 10.8 points per game. But last year he was a 17 plus point per game scorer for James Madison. And you'll remember he played pretty well against Duke in the Jared McCain game in the NCAA second round. Now we ran them off the floor, but Terrence Edwards was a problem. He is only hitting 20% of his 3-pointers, only hitting 40% of his field goals overall. You know, he's 68% on free. Like he has just really, really struggled to adjust to life on a bigger, big time program, Power 5 conference team. So they got a bunch of other guys who are all playing, 20-ish minutes a game and averaging, 6, 8, 10 points a game. But Chucky Hepburn to me and Terrence Edwards are the real keys. And then again, the fact that they don't have anybody who's just going to be much of a threat on the inside. Noah Waterman, who I mentioned, is like the starting center, 6.8 points per game. They don't really have anybody else who's going to score very much at all on the inside.
It's interesting. You mentioned the fact that they are so experienced, and they're one of the top 10 most experienced teams in college basketball. And as you mentioned, it's because
they're seventh in experience. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's because they brought in so many transfers, 5th and 6th and 19th year transfers. They have one freshman, right? They have one freshman, one sophomore, and one junior that are among their, reasonably used players in their rotation. And it's interesting to see how this team will develop and how the coaching staff decides to develop this team, because it's kind of like our team in the sense where the seniors and the experienced guys that come in, they probably weren't doing a lot of individual work. They were doing a lot of teamwork because they needed to form as a team very quickly. They need to erase the ghosts of the Kenny Payne era, which was not great for Louisville and one that they will soon rather forget. And I'm interested to see how they, I've seen them play spurts here and there, but I'm interested to see them up close for the first time and see how that gelling process has become, because that is the key to Louisville being one of the, upper teams in the ACC. It's about how those guys come together and overcome some of their deficiencies.
All right. Well, we told you a little bit about Louisville. When we come back from the break, Donald's going to tell you what matchups to watch in this game. Donald, who is going to cover Cooper Flagg? I want that question answered when we come back from this short commercial break.
This episode is brought to you by Disney Plus. Game on, because ESPN Plus content is available on Disney Plus. You can watch your favorites from Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus together like never before. With ESPN Plus, unwrap a full day of NBA action on Christmas Day. Tip off the festivities with the Spurs and Knicks, followed by the Mavs and Timberwolves. Then a clash between the Lakers and Warriors, followed by the 76ers and Celtics. And finally, the Nuggets face off against the Suns, all streaming December 25th. Then with Hulu, watch the terrifying sci-fi thriller Alien Romulus, where a group of young space colonizers come face to face with the ultimate horror. And on Disney Plus, follow the adventures of 4 kids across the galaxy as they meet unlikely allies and enemies in Star Wars: Skeleton Crew, starring Jude Law. All of these and more now streaming and available with a bundle subscription. Visit DisneyPlus.com for details. Terms apply.
Okay, we're back from the break. We're talking about Louisville, Duke's first ACC game of the season on the road. And it is time for Donald to tell us a little bit about the matchups we should be looking at. And Donald, I'm going to toss you with this question. I gave it to you before the break, so you had a little bit of time to think about it, my friend. Does Louisville have anybody who matches up well with Cooper Flagg?
Well, the short answer is no. The long answer is I don't think so. But I think honestly, Jason, in football, you have like a running back by committee where you don't really have a starter. You throw a bunch of guys out there and you see what happens. This is probably going to be a Cooper Flag defender by committee, right? Because there's a lot of guys, they're either undersized or like in the case of Noah Waterman, he's probably the tallest guy on the floor. So like when you have Malawach or Malik Brown out there, do you shift him over? Do you put maybe a lesser, more athletic guy on Cooper Flag, but then Cooper Flag is able to use his size? It's a very tough matchup for Louisville.
I think it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be Terrence Edwards. Honestly, the guy I talked about from JMU because he's got some length to his game.
Yeah, but he's also again, even with that, Cooper Flag's got what 3 inches on him, so
yeah, exactly.
He still has a size disadvantage. But again, Duke is going to have to learn how to play like this all season. There's going to be some distinct size mismatches in a lot of the teams that we play. We're the tallest team in college basketball, so there's not a lot of teams short. I think Florida State is number 2, ironically. So when we play them, that'll be interesting to see how we match up.
Florida State is
they're always tall, right? They always got 18 7-footers. Always. Leonard Hamilton, the man, he's one of the GOAT coaches on this pod. But I will say, I think Cooper Flag poses a big matchup problem for Louisville, and they have to figure out how to exploit that. But more importantly, Jason, I think there's a couple of things that Duke fans need to watch out for. The first one, and I'm going to say this very slowly. You may have heard me say this on this pod before. Jason, I think you've said it on this pod before. We need a decent start. No more slow starts. Get that out your brain.
Please.
Yeah. Por favor. In Portuguese. Por favor. No more slow starts. Get out to it is even more important on the road to get out to a decent start. Again, I'm not asking you to blow the doors off and be up 15 at the first TV timeout. If it's tied, right? If it's 8-8, 10-10, we're up by a couple points, that's still fine. But it's better than being down 12 points, 11 points, 13 points to start the game. You cannot open up a deficit to give them any hope that they can pull off the upset. Rebounding. This is where the ACC is going to, despite the fact that they have some teams that are shorter than us, they have guys who can rebound, and we have to make sure that we win the rebounding battle because, again, that is going to limit what they're doing on offense. If they're missing shots, if they're missing all these, 3-pointers that they're taking every other shot, Jason, then we better get the rebound and go the other way because if they keep getting chances to shoot, eventually they're going to score. And you don't want every possession that they have to end in a score because you kept giving them opportunities to shoot the basketball. I think focused on that, the 3-point shooting is an interesting thing. And the fact that you mentioned that they are a team that shoots more than 50% of their shots from beyond the arc means that our perimeter defense has to show up to play. And I know we played tough defense, but our perimeter defense is going to be super important on Sunday night because of the fact that they take so many threes. That is a Tyrese Proctor. That is a Caleb Foster. That is a Sion James. Making sure that they are in our face and playing physical so that these guys cannot get off good 3-point shots, open looks. As I've mentioned before, times when teams have wide open looks against us, they shoot pretty well. And that makes sense. But when we have a hand in their face and we're in their grill, they're not hitting anything. And that's the key here is we need to limit the number of open looks that they have. And I think finally, Jason, it's energy. All this is tied into the energy that is required of being on the road, especially at an ACC school where every single ACC road game we have, that team, for most of them, it's the Super Bowl. They are going to have a jam-packed arena. They're going to be loud. They're going to be proud. They're going to be rooting for the upset, particularly against Duke, because they know that will get them on TV. And I need Duke to come out of the gates, bring that defense that they've been doing, but bring the physicality, bring the intensity with it, because that is going to be how we get out of this Yum Center with a victory. It may not be full execution. We're not going to be perfect at all areas of the game, but we can be perfect at execution when it comes to intensity and bringing that lunch pail defense, because if we can do that, then Louisville is going to have a tough time in their hands.
Yeah, I'll mention one other thing, sort of the last thing I have on this that I think could be a factor in this game, and that's depth. Because Louisville has really gotten hit by the injury bug. I mentioned earlier their best interior player, Cassine Pryor, is out for the year with a torn ACL. They're also missing Corin Johnson. I want to say torn Achilles, I think. Corin Johnson's already announced that he's going to redshirt this season. He only played 2 games, tore his Achilles. He's out for the rest of the year. And then Abubakar Traore is another guy who is. These are, by the way, each one of these guys were playing like 15, 20 plus minutes per game. These were major rotation players for Louisville, and all three of them are out. And I think Traore is probably not going to be back. I think I want to say he had a shoulder, but he's probably not going to be back. They're saying until January now. So this Louisville club went from a team that had 11 or 12 players or so. They're currently, as I mentioned earlier, they're only going to play 7 probably against a team the quality of Duke. There may be one other guy who they give a minute or two here or there, but for the most part, this is a team that's going to be very, very thin compared to what Duke brings. If Duke is able to get guys in foul trouble, which I think could definitely, Cooper Flagg did that in a big way against Auburn and has shown throughout this year he can draw fouls. So Duke gets guys in foul trouble, or if Duke turns up the pace a little bit, it could be tough on this Louisville team. I know they're old and experienced, and that they're probably in great shape, and they know what it takes to play. A lot of these guys, are used to playing 30 plus minutes per game, but that could be, just be on the lookout for that. That could be a real factor.
Last thing I want to do, I on the last episode when I did we did the recap, I challenged Man to try and get more rebounds. I want to issue another challenge. Again, these are friendly challenges. This is not like, hey, I need you to do better or else, right? But Mason Gillis, I want you to have a good game in this one, because this is where the experience that he has brought from being on a national championship runner-up in Purdue, this is the type of game where that can be unleashed. And again, it doesn't have to be where he's hitting 9 threes and doing all this stuff on offense. But again, doing the little things, the intangibles in defense, bringing the intensity, and showing that, hey, when we're on the road, this is how people are going to play us. And this is how we need to react. This is how we need to respond. He did that so well last year. It hasn't quite shown up in a Duke uniform yet. This is the game that I'm challenging him to put all that aside and say, focus on what you do best and let that come out against Louisville.
Yeah. Ken Pomeroy projects that Duke wins this game 74-66. Has Duke win this game by 8. We will see what happens on Sunday when the Blue Devils take on the Louisville Cardinals. Until then, he is Donald. I am Jason. Here's the Duke Band playing us out and taking us home.